Welcome to the SEO.co Search Engine Optimization Podcast. Digital marketing essentials and next level tactics. From offsite and on-site optimization to persuasive selling and everything in between. You'll learn actionable tips on what it takes to outright and outrank your competition.
No matter what type of asset that you choose to create, there are two basic principles that you'll need to have in order to be successful. They are value and shareability. Value is important because it makes your content inherently worth linking to. This is a vague description because it applies to so many different contexts. For example, it might be worth linking to your asset if it has factual data that can prove someone's point, or it might be worth linking to it if it serves as an illustration of someone's idea. And then the concept of shareability is also important because it increases the potential visibility and reach of your asset. The more contagious your piece is, the further it's going to reach, and the more people will have the opportunity to link to it in the first place. For example, it might be shareable if it evokes a strong emotional reaction, or if it's especially easy or rewarding to share. So now I want to expound a little bit more on these concepts of value and shareability. Let's start with value. So your value can stem from the originality of your content. There's a ton of content already out there on just about every subject. Content marketing is extremely popular, and major informational sites like Wikipedia have a solid lockdown on most general topics. Why would anyone link to your content when they could link to Wikipedia for an even more reliable, in-depth look at an identical topic? If you want your piece to be valuable in any way, it needs to be original. This is going to do two things for you. First, it's going to narrow your potential audience. This may sound like a bad thing, but as your audience gets smaller, your relevance goes up. Second, it's going to decrease the competition for the link. If someone out there is looking to cite information like yours, and yours is the only and best reliable source that they can find, you're going to get the link. Make sure nobody has done this topic before, or at least that nobody's done it as good as you have. Another aspect of value is practicality. For the most part, your work will need to have some practical element to it. And almost anything can be practical if you put the right spin on it. For starters, there are obviously practical topics like how-to guides, tutorials, walkthroughs, and research publications. But don't be afraid to step outside of these boundaries. For example, let's say you're writing a personal post about your opinions on the state of your industry. On the surface, this doesn't seem practical. Your opinions aren't helping anyone do anything. But if you include the right framework, your opinions can be made practical. For instance, you can come to some general conclusions about the state and future of the industry, then come up with several potential strategies and other business owners can use to make the transition. You can also back your opinions up with original data that others can cite for their counterarguments. Another element of value is detail. The level of detail in your piece is a crucial factor in how valuable it's going to seem to your target audience. For example, let's say you're writing an opinion piece on the state of your industry. Do you fully explore all sides of the situation? Do you present counterarguments and rebuttals to your main point? Do you exhaust your resources to find data points that back up what you're saying? This isn't an excuse to stuff your pieces full of meaningless information. You'll still want to be concise as possible. However, the main pieces of valuable information for you to include throughout your piece, and the more thorough you are in your overall coverage, the more valuable and linkable your piece will be overall. All right, another aspect of value is effort. How can you quantify effort when it could apply to so many different elements of your work? The effort could refer to how much time you spent doing research, how many images and videos you pulled to illustrate your core concepts, or how much time you spent revising and polishing your work to make sure it's the best piece there is out there. All of these factors, even the small ones, are important. Why? Like I said, the content marketing world is hyper competitive. There are millions of people producing, and syndicating content. But there's a normal distribution curve at play. For every person spending dozens of hours on a single piece, there are hundreds of people popping out fluffy, low-value pieces every minute. Guess where the links are going? That's right. They're going to those who put in the time and make quality content. Okay, now we're going to move on to the elements of shareability. The first aspect we want to talk about is accessibility. Your first goal should be making sure that your piece is accessible. If it's hard to get to, hard to read, impossible to play, or otherwise invisible, it's not going to get shared. Make your piece prominent on your site as a first line of attack, interlinking it with the other pieces of your site and making sure it's featured prominently on your homepage. If it's something you want to promote, it should be impossible to miss. Next, you want to check on your web development fundamentals, making sure your content loads on mobile devices and on all web browsers. You can use sites like Mobile Test Me and Browserling to help you out there. How quickly is your page loading? How well is your visual content displaying? Is your text easy to read? Beyond that, you'll need to make your piece visible using an initial boost, which I'll get into in my next section. Skimmability. I get it. You don't like the idea of people skimming your piece. You've spent a lot of time doing the research, outlining, writing, and revising, and you've made sure that every sentence of your work is valuable. That doesn't change the fact that some people are going to want to skim it. Some people are just skimmers, and nothing is going to change that. If they skim it and get some value out of it, they'll be likely to share it with their friends and followers who might read it in full. If they skim it and gain nothing, they'll click away, never to return. Accordingly, it's in your best interest to make your content as skimmable as possible. Make your main points clear in the introduction and conclusion of your work, including as many bulleted and numbered lists as possible along the way. Separate your work into clear, prominent sections with subheaders and visual navigation tools to help guide your readers' eyes to the most important parts. Will these people get the full value of your piece this way? No. But it'll help your link building efforts because you'll get more shares and engagement from skimmers. Another aspect of shareability is emotional resonance. People are far more likely to share content that has sparked some level of emotional resonance with them. What this emotional connection is, precisely, is up to you. It could be positive or negative. It could be present or past focused. The only requirement is that it's a strong one. For example, you could use chilling statistics to illustrate a social problem that's bigger than most people imagined it to be, like institutional racism. Or you could go the opposite route and try to evoke a response of humor and levity, like with Old Spice's "The Man Your Man Could Smell Like" video. Emotional resonance is tough to pin down, so in order to be effective, you'll have to dig deep into some market research and find out what really makes your users tick. You might even have to try some experiments and A/B tests to get it right. The next aspect I want to talk about is utility. In addition to being practical, your piece should also offer a degree of utility or a degree of relevance to your target readers' lives. Think of this as a way of aligning your content topic with the current environments and lifestyles of your users. For example, let's say your target demographics are in college and it's April. At this time, most students are getting ready for final exams, so you can create and promote a piece that has some practical value for this scenario, such as tips on how to better retain information or how to study more effectively. If a person reads a piece of content and is helped, even in a small way, then they'll be more likely to share it with their peers. Another aspect is convenience. This is a simple tenet of shareability, but it's one you can't afford to ignore. People are only going to share your content if you make it easy for them to share it. Honestly, if the process takes longer than a single click, your users aren't going to take action. Your first job is making sure your social media share icons are present and prominent on each page of content. If it's published on your blog post, these should already be there. Beyond that, go out of your way to include social share icons in any way you present your piece. For example, you'll need to include these in your email newsletters, in your press releases. You could even ask your followers to share your work directly on social media. It has to be easy and it has to be obvious. I hope that today's episode was helpful for you as you try to create some awesome content.
Thank you for joining us on the SEO.co podcast. We appreciate your time. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and visit SEO.co for more resources based on today's topic, as well as access to more podcast episodes to help you improve your site's long-term SEO success.